Hey everybody, Royalivi here, back with episode 14, episode 14 of the Sorare Road to Glory. Lots of changes to the club this episode and a few things I'm considering over the winter break to go through, so without wasting any time, let's have a look at how I did in game week 225. Now for this game week, I was originally unsure if all my players would be starting and getting game time, mainly due to the fact this game week was the final group stage matches of the European competitions, so AZ for instance had already wrapped up top spot of their group, but luckily Mitso and Martins Indy did start the match and they got some very tidy scores. Nuno Santos popped up with a nice goal for Sporting, the acrobatic little fucker that he is. So there you go, all in all a decent game week where we managed to hit the second threshold, 10 points shy of a tier 3 reward, but can't complain. And then to kick the transfers off, I will inform you all on some MLS transfers I've been making initially. I've gone out and bought Keaton Parks for 0.06 Ethereum, about £180. For anyone who watched part 2 of my MLS scouting video, you'll know I think he's a tidy player who gets decent all-round scores, so hopefully he'll be an important player for me come the MLS season in March. And for anyone who hasn't watched part 2 of my MLS scouting video, then I don't know, go and watch it maybe, that'd be nice. I also then grabbed a Jonathan Mensah for 0.02 Ethereum, about £60, just another option to bolster my defence. I have his Columbus teammate Milton Valenzuela at the back as well, so they could be a nice combination going forward. And then I also went out and bought Benji Mikel for 0.025 Ethereum, about £75. And looking at Orlando's setup on Transfermarkt, they've released a lot of forwards in the off-season, so Mikel is in good stead to hopefully get a lot of game time at the start of next season. He looks relatively cheap on the market right now at under £100 for a forward, so I can't expect him to not be going for more than that come the start of the season. Of course, Orlando will likely go out and add some more forwards to the club, but you know, Mikel can be utilised in midfield as well, so I'm sure he'll be an important player for Orlando next season, and hopefully I can make some good profit there. Now, it's a shame with the MLS players that I'm mostly monitoring at the moment. Over the last week or two, a lot of them have seemed to have risen a fair bit in value, so then going outside of the MLS, I sold my Luca Kronberger for 0.079 Ethereum, about £240. Now, I bought him for 0.06 Ethereum, so an almost 33% profit on a player who, when you look at his SO5 scores, historically, he's been actually quite dog shit. I mean, he is a young kid, so I don't want to be too harsh on the fucker, but he has just not been successful for me on the pitch, so to make a profit on him, especially considering the Austrian League is about to go on a 2-month winter break, no complaints from me at all. I then also sold my Nuno Santos for 0.08 Ethereum, about £265. Bit of a shame to lose him after his nice goal in the Champions League, but in the end I made a profit on a player who's consistently very average. You know, he picks up those middle of the road kind of scores on SO5 and he doesn't always start, so he's just not really the option I'm looking for as a forward, so I thought I'd cash in on him right now. I have managed to replace him with a player who I've been aiming to get for a while now, and that is the man, the myth, the AZ number 9 Evangelis Pavlidis, who I managed to buy for 0.29 Ethereum, about £875. So what can I say? Obviously not cheap, but I am getting a proven goal scorer in the Eredivisie. He's tied down until 2025 at AZ, so you'd like to think he'll be their striker for the foreseeable future, and he's only 23 as well, so he can only really get better going forward. And then looking at who he'll be lining up alongside, he combines very nicely with my existing AZ stacks, so we're just really waiting on Peter Vindal to have his goalkeeper card released at this point, at which point we'll have a full AZ stack for global and challenger divisions going forward. So all in all, quite an expensive purchase, but you know, just look at his SO5 scores over the past year, lots of green in there, and I really think this could be the marquee purchase for my club that allows me to push on each week in Challenger and Global. Fingers crossed that AZ can hit some good form when they return to playing in January. They're still in the Conference League as well, so I have a team for those midweek fixtures when they come around. It could be argued that maybe Pavlidis' price could drop over the Christmas break, or maybe as he gets closer to no longer being an under 23 card next season, but overall I can't see his price dropping too much in terms of Ethereum against where it is now, and in fiat terms I've got him for a good price. I've been monitoring him the last couple of weeks and been seeing him going for over £1,000, so I've got him at a time when Ethereum has dipped to bits, you know, so I've got a good deal in fiat terms there. And to get a quality striker in Challenger Europe right now, as a minimum it's 0.15 Ethereum, so in recent months I've made some good profits on players as well as consistently hitting the Ethereum thresholds, you know, so I think I reserve the right to go out and splash a bit on a quality striker like Pavlidis to further my ability to compete in the global and challenger brackets. And then, as you can tell by the title of the video, I had my biggest ever sell since I started Sorare and this Road to Glory series, and that is Matij Brandehorst, who I sold for 0.329 Ethereum, a little under £1,100. And well, fuck me, it was a tough one to let him go. You know, on the one hand, Brandehorst has been a cracking asset for me since signing him 3 months ago. You can see on his player page here, I made a very nice profit on him. But on the other side of the coin, I'm losing a player who has had some great scores for me in the net over the last few months. You know, he's been a very very consistent player for me to have each week. I just think the value that he's currently going for on the market, that selling him is the best decision going forward. Looking at Sorare data in the last week leading up to my sale, we can see Branderhorst going for around 0.28 Ethereum, so to get 0.33 Ethereum for him is very nice. Now that price hike is likely due to my card being the 1 out of 100 edition, as well as the XB, and probably just the timing of the sale. And I think to myself, is having a 1 out of 100 edition of some random fucking Eredivisie goalkeeper really worth the extra money? To me, probably not. No offense, Branderhorst, I'm sure you're a lovely bloke, but you just ain't an elite footballer for me, big man, so I'm happy to add to the Ethereum to the club for selling him. This does, however, mean I need a replacement goalkeeper in the Eredivisie or Pro League, as they are the leagues not going on a prolonged winter break, so I have gone out and bought Thomas de Dillon of Cercle Bruges for 0.212 Ethereum, about £710. Now, after scouting for a new goalkeeper, I settled on de Dillon as he seemed like the best option for around that price bracket. A lot of the starting keepers in the Eredivisie and Pro Leagues right now are a lot closer to 0.3 Ethereum than 0.2, but then you have a select few goalkeepers such as de Dion, Lamproe, Yannick Vanoche, who are closer to that 0.2 mark. Now, the reason these keepers are cheaper than other starting keepers in their respective leagues is due to the league positions of these teams. So taking a look at the Pro League, we can see Cercle Bruges have only just about escaped the relegation zone right now, thanks to a few wins. Similar in the Eredivisie, where Pexwell and Fortuna are both in the relegation zones for Lamproe and Vanoche's case. So there's always the risk of these keepers getting relegated with their shite teams, but I got my best scientific hat on and took a calculated risk on de Dion. Now, this is because de Dion's team, Cercle Bruges, are in the Pro League, and comparing that with the Eredivisie, we can see that the Eredivisie has an additional relegation spot, so obviously more chance for the goalkeepers in this division to get relegated, especially when you consider Fortuna and Pexwell are right deep in there at the moment in the relegation zone. It looks like they'll likely be there come the end of the season, so big risk buying their keepers right now. But then comparatively, when we look at the Pro League, we can see it looks very likely that Beerschot will finish bottom, meaning at the very worst, Cercle Bruges will be in a relegation playoff to stay up. And I think that's just down to the makeup of the leagues as well. In the Eredivisie, I think the bottom teams will struggle a lot coming up against the best teams or even the other mid-table teams, whereas in the Pro League, I feel like a team like Cercle Bruges would have a chance to grab a result against anyone on their day. So in the end, I just have more faith in the team as a whole to stay up, making de Dion my choice of purchase to replace Branderhorst. And just on top of that, he's a young keeper as well who's got another 2.5 years left on his deal, so I expect him to remain the Cercle Bruges starter for the foreseeable future. Like I say, just a case of hoping they don't get relegated, which I'm pretty sure they won't, so we can add Cercle Bruges to the list of random foreign teams I'm now supporting. And I think on that note, it's also just worth comparing de Dion to the departing Branderhorst as well. Taking a look at Sorare data and their scores since game week 192, yeah, there's no question that Branderhorst has got the upper hand in scores, but realistically, I don't think the SO5 scores are too different to warrant being worried about that. Maybe Branderhorst on average over the last 5 or 15 games will get roughly 5 more points in SO5 than de Dion. Is that worth an extra 0.12 Ethereum? I don't think so, especially when then with that Ethereum I can go out and put that into the club elsewhere, such as with my purchase of Pavlidis. So this trade's gone a long way in facilitating the overall improvement to my club. And I think it's a great thing that I had my scientific hat on when purchasing de Dion as well, because if we look at his price points on Sorare data, we can see in the days after I've purchased him, his price has gone up over 25%. Now, it's not a huge deal, as a lot of players' value has risen in the last week or so, but it's nice to know there's a profit there on de Dion if I want it. Whew, okay, that was a long one. With all the analytical transfer market shit out of the way, let's see how I got on in game week 226. In All-Star Rare, I actually had to line up with Common Gakpo as my forward, as I was unable to purchase Pavlidis in time for this game week, and it was a bit of a brutal bad beat to take. I went to bed one night with 246 points, and then I woke up the next day with 254 points. So happy days, the Opta gods were shining down on me, but then, however, the day before the rewards went out, Opta decided to reduce Mitso and Martins in the scores, meaning I was 1.5 points shy of that second threshold, so fuck me, that is a rough one to take, especially when you consider that I captained Uncham, my lowest scorer. If I captained Mitso like I usually do, then I would have hit that second threshold, so fine margins there, but hey, what can you do? Can't have it go your way every time, and I can only blame myself being the shit bloke that I am. At least Dion had a good game week, and we also managed to win a tier 3 reward in All-Star Limited. The Hartberg stack came through again. Now, obviously, the reward wasn't worth much, but this stack got me thinking thinking about expanding my TSV Hartberg allegiance to a rare stack as well. Now, a rare version of my Hartberg stack would allow me to still compete for that second threshold each week while putting my AZ stack in the Challenger Europe bracket to compete there. You know, including the Goalkeeper Rennie suite, a Hartberg stack would be about 0.3 to 0.4 Ethereum, so not an insignificant outlay, but it would be one of the cheaper stacks out there. And just looking at the Austrian Bundesliga, there's only 4 games left of the regular season, and it looks like Hartberg are going to be one of the better teams in the relegation round. So again, you'd fancy their chances to pick up some decent wins over their final 10 games in the relegation round, and hopefully some good SO5 scores to go along with it. They are now on their winter break for 2 months at this point, but that means it is probably the best time to pick up some of their players. And as long as they don't get relegated, then I'm pretty locked in all year round with 2 Challenger Europe teams, a few MLS teams, a team that plays over the winter and so on. So going forward, I should be in a place to have a threshold competing team almost every weekend of the year. And then no team for the midweek game week 227, but then for game week 228 we will be lining up pretty much as expected. The Dion in net with the AZ stack lining up around him. I haven't put in Cham in this week as Swansea are playing QPR, who have had COVID issues in the squad, so I don't want to risk his game getting cancelled and not getting any points. So we are going to go full AZ outfield, and hopefully they go out and fuck Willem 2 up. And just to end the video, letting you know I'll have no teams competing from game week 230 until like game week 235 or something, so there will be a longer gap over the next few Road to Glory videos, but I will review my game week 228 and 229 results on the next episode, as well as just do a final year review of my club heading into 2020, you know, the profit I've made and what the setup of the club looks like going forward. So do stick around and subscribe for that, like and comment with your thoughts down below on everything, and I will catch you next time. Thanks for watching this longer episode, everybody.